A cell is similar to a factory in many ways. A factory has many components that can be seen as those in a cell.
The cell membrane regulates what comes in and out of the cell. This is similar to our factory because the cell membrane in our analogous structure is a security guard. The security guard decides what can enter and what can exit the factory. This is similar to the cell membrane in a cell because they both regulate what enters the cell. Here is our cell membrane in the factory. Next is the cell wall. The cell wall is a rigid structure and provides support for the cell. It is also the outermost part of the cell, and it is outside of the cell membrane. In our factory, the cell wall is the analogous structure of the factory walls. The factory walls provide structure, protection for the factory. Here's our cell walls in our factory. The cell walls in our factory, which are the factory walls, are similar to those in a cell because they both provide structure and support for their respective objects. Next is the nucleus. The nucleus holds the DNA, which is instructions to make the proteins of that specific cell. The analogous structure in our factory is the factory manager. The factory manager guides employees to work, gives them instructions, and holds all the information to the factory. This is similar to the nucleus in a cell because they both hold the information to make the product. Here's the nucleus in our factory. Next is ribosomes. The ribosomes are the site of the protein synthesis, where where the RNA's information is made into proteins. In our factory, the analogous structure is the cafeteria. The cafeteria in our factory makes content and packages for the workers inside of the factory. This relates to the ribosomes of a cell because the ribosomes make the proteins for the inside of the cell. And here's our ribosomes in our factory.
Alright, so the rough endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for making proteins which are then shipped outside the cell. Our analogous structure for the rough ER is a machine with a conveyor belt. The structure in our cell, in our factory, makes the Twinkies, because it's a Twinkie factory, and ships them outside the factory. These two are similar because they both make the product and they both ship it out. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for making proteins and making lipids and detoxifying the cell. Our analogous structure is the janitor over here who doubles as a factory worker. Our person in our factory is responsible for cleaning this factory and making things for the factory, making Twinkies. And the two are similar because they both clean, detoxify the area, and they both make things. And then the lysosome is the recycling center of the cell, which turns useless things into useful things for the cell. Our analogous structure is a recycling machine. It's a little area in the back of our factory, which takes items like unmade Twinkies or messed up Twinkies and turns them into useful Twinkies. And the two are similar because they both recycle things.
Also, in the cell, there's the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus receives and modifies the raw proteins and lipids to turn them into something that the cell can use. And in this case, in the factory, the analogous structure of the Golgi apparatus would be the actual machines. These machines can turn flour, sugar, and butter into the actual Twinkies. These two structures are analogous because both of them receive the unmade material and make it into the thing that the cell needs. Also, a vesicle in a cell acts as a delivery worker in a factory. A vesicle brings different proteins and lipids to different parts of the cells and just carries what's needed. In the same case, the delivery worker carries around boxes or Twinkies to where they need to go. And they're analogous to each other because both concepts send and deliver contents both domestically and internationally or outside the factory or cell. And The mitochondria can also be seen in both the cell and the factory. In a cell, the mitochondria provides energy for the cell by making ATP. In the factory, the mitochondria would act as the generator, which creates energy for the cell that the cell can use. In both cases, these two create a type of energy that the surrounding can use. In the case, the cell would be the ATP, and in this case, the generator would be fuel or gas.
Also in our cell, we have the chloroplast, and the chloroplast uses photosynthesis within the cell to turn light energy into chemical energy. Our analogous structure for the chloroplast would be our solar panels, which are clearly defined here. And what the solar panels do in our factory is they turn the light energy into useful energy that the factory can use to make our Twinkies. The solar panels and the chloroplast in a cell are alike because they both turn light energy into energy that both the cell can use and both so that the factory can also make our Twinkies. Also in a cell we have a vacuole, and a large vacuole is a storage center for water, nutrients, and other things. It also provides structure for plant cells. For the vacuole here, for our factory, our analogous structure is the storage center, which is this little black box here. This storage center in our factory stores the made Twinkies so that they could be ready to be delivered outside of the factory to our customers. The vacuole and the storage center in our factory are alike because they both store the made goods and are waiting to be, they're just there waiting to be delivered outside of the cell, or in this case, outside of the factory to our consumers. And last but not least, in the cell we have a cytoskeleton. And the cytoskeleton gives the cell shape, structure, and allows for transportation of the vesicles. Our analogous structure for our cytoskeleton in our factory would be the foundation of the factory, and also the structure and shape of what the factory actually is. Our cytoskeleton basically provides us with hallways so that workers can work and deliver our Twinkies throughout the factory and outside if needed. And the cytoskeleton and our analogous structure for the cytoskeleton, which are foundation and hallways, are both alike because they both provide the structure and shape of our factory and provide space for our workers within a cell, or in this case the factory, to move around and work and make Twinkies in this case.
Thank you.
So in this case, there are many concepts of a cell that can be seen inside a factory.